east, but the Mongols took over all of Russia. Geography doesn't always help the Russians. Occasionally, winter will, but we'll talk about those things. But occasionally, yeah, there we go. Occasionally. But most of the time, write this down. If you're going to have legitimacy as the leader of Russia, first things first, national security. First things first. We don't want to have an argument. We can't have an argument about elections and freedom and stuff like that. We're about to get invaded by, take a pick, the Mongols, the Swedes, the French, the Germans, all these people. Yeah, exactly, the Germans. And so you're like, there's an expectation first and foremost, because it's always present in the history of the Russians. Focus first on those first legitimacy issues, and especially the national security. You got that? I mean, it's kind of sad that way. So when Russians stick their heads up and ask for freedom, I got a lot of affinity for those people. But they're going against a difficult tide. Yeah, history and geography haven't helped them out that much. Oh, how comfortable are you feeling with the geography of the United States of America? Is it, I mean, this was good in the 1800s, and I'd say in the 1900s. I mean, the Japanese only got halfway across the Pacific before they could cause some damage at Pearl Harbor. They weren't able to invade. How secure do you feel in the United States of America for national security? Yeah, you're pretty secure and so forth? I mean, are we going to be able to stop all threats? Will we have to give up a bunch of freedom in order to maintain national security? It's an interesting question. But the danger lurks. If our government can't handle those first three things, freedom tends to get pushed aside, unfortunately. Let's look at the next one. Domestic security. You ready? Here we go. Domestic security is government's responsibility to keep the country safe and secure from what kind of threats? Inside threats. What kinds of inside threats are we talking about? Okay, so let's start with a basic variety of people who are ill-tempered and ill-moraled and maybe sometimes economically challenged. Crime. Write that down. Crime. Crime is a problem that creates some domestic insecurity. When criminals are running around unpunished, unchecked, what happens to the people living in those communities? I mean, that's not good. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like, I was thinking, you know, back in the early days of Idaho, when by the way, who provides that domestic security for the government? Who do we look to primarily to do that? We're not talking about the military. We're talking about the police, all right, law enforcement. Write that down. That's an easy one, police. We're going to rely on the police, okay? Which is different from the military. In some countries, it's kind of like, what's the difference, you know? In our country, they're very different, okay? And the military don't generally like to be called out to do police work, although they can be during things of crazy domestic insecurity. But if you go back to like early Idaho, some of the police were corrupt. I remember there was a story about a sheriff of Ada County who was corrupt. I mean, he was involved in a criminal gang, and the community were like, that's enough. They formed a posse, they formed a vigilante squad, and they tracked the guy down and they killed him. And we're like, whoa, I want to say this is like the 1860s, 1870s. I mean, it's a long time ago. That is not the situation now, right? Does law enforcement do a good job, say, in this community of providing domestic security? Yeah, and who generally has most of the responsibility? Local government, national government, or state government? What do you think? Anybody know? Are most of the people employed in police agencies in the state of Idaho, are they employed by the state? Does anybody know? By the federal government or by cities and counties? Cities and counties. You can write that down. Most of those responsibilities are held by cities and counties. So like, although, you know, there's some buildings, like for example, we had like, I don't know, it's like a 3-day legislative session in the state capitol building, and there were some protesters that came and so forth. Who provided like police security for that situation? Since it was a state building, state police. What's the name of the state police agency in the state of Idaho? I'll give you the initials. ISP. Idaho State Police. Okay. Way back when I was a prosecutor a long time ago, I had some cases with local Ada County deputy sheriffs. I don't think I had any in Boise City because I was working for the Ada County prosecutor's office. And then some of my cases were with ISP officers, right? So they're providing the security. That's what they do, okay? What about it? Do we have a lot of domestic insecurity issues in the United States? Some of you guys, how would you say, like, over the last year, has the number gone up or down? Up. Like what? What are you talking about, JT? What kinds of domestic insecurity problems are popping up in some communities? Gangs, okay, and gangs have been persistent in various different places at times, right? Of what? Like crime? A state. Oh my gosh. Are you saying that California is the exclusive province of domestic insecurity in the 50 states of the United States of America? No, I don't think that's true, and I don't think you can prove that. In fact, if you want to go to like other states, there's gangs all over. But yeah, I mean, there's lots. All right, yes.
I have two that kind of go together, but I feel like it's getting higher because of rioting.
Has there been rioting going on in this country over the last several months? In some communities, at some times, particularly after dark, right? And it's really unfortunate because during the day, you'll get some people that will come out and actually follow the rules of peaceful, legal protest, right? They stay on the sidewalks. They don't block traffic. They hold up their signs. They don't attack people. They get their word out. That's cool. That's America. That's freedom. But then there's other groups, and they get active at different times, particularly at night. And those have been causing some real headaches for some communities. Thankfully not Boise, Idaho, but if you follow the news, like places like Seattle or Portland and so forth, it's like this ongoing thing. So some of the people in those communities are going, what do we do? And it gets really unfortunate because here's what happens sometimes. Some people look around, they're like, if the government is not legitimately providing for domestic security, that's my job. Right? I mean, there was a 17-year-old from like Illinois, and he went up to Wisconsin. Was it Wisconsin or was it Minnesota? It was Kenosha. It was Wisconsin, I think it was. And so there was some protesting and there was some rioting. There was some buildings being burned down and so forth. And there perhaps was a feeling among some that law enforcement wasn't providing adequate domestic security. So he went up there to take things into his own matter. And that got kind of crazy because then some guys were like, we don't like what you're doing. And they're chasing him and he's got a gun and boom, boom. And some people are dead. And then now he's being charged with like use of guns and so forth. Generally, in a country, is domestic security enhanced by having the police being able to take care of it or leaving it up to civilians? When the police can do their job, okay? I hope that things are going to be calm and peaceful as we move forward. Sometimes, make a quick note on this. Some countries, this is Yugoslavia. In 1989, when they were totally unified, it's one big red country. But in fact, that belies the reality that there were lots of different ethnic, national groups in the country that didn't necessarily like each other, and they went to war with each other, like civil war with each other. That is another source of domestic insecurity. We'll develop that more next time, as well as economic social satisfaction and so forth. We just replaced that whole thing